right. Welcome everyone to Spirit Coffee Talk. Thank you so much for joining us as always. I'm Ginette, and with me is Elyse and Lisa, and we're some of the mediums and channelers at Avalon Spirit. And every Friday we get together and chat about all things spirit and energy and the world. And today we're talking about the full moon because today is a very, very powerful, significant full moon. And I mean, honestly, I think all of the moons have been compounding on their significance as we've been moving through this year. But I know that this moon is set to be very fiery, very fiery in that in what it's asking us. And that's where I'm getting this imagery of the fire. It's kind of like, you know, in cartoons when someone's holding fire to like the other person's rear end and they're trying to like motivate them and the person's like jumping and it's kind of like there's a motivation energy I find to this moon and a momentum. So anyways, welcome everyone. How are you all feeling on this moon?
Good. Like when you're talking about like the fiery energy of motivation, when I was kind of tuning into it too, it's like you actually pulled through Jeanette this message. Like, I don't know if it was like actually like a full year ago. But they're being really clear with saying like, what do you want? Do you remember when you had that full, like, what do you want? What is it that you want? Because at this point, there is so much there's so much energy at play. There just is. And this full moon is asking you like, what do you want? What is it? Straight up the notebook line from, he's asking Allie, what do you want? What do you want? It's so much like that. It's like, what do you want? Like, stop putting, this is really like intense, so I'm sorry. I don't feel like I'm trying to yell at anybody, but it's very, very intense. It's like, stop putting your power in any other what ifs. Honestly, because putting power in what ifs and maybe so, like, that's really like letting your energy go, releasing your own power. If you retrieve that energy and bring it back and be like, what do I want? And you focus on like aligning yourself with the actual wants, not aligning yourself with the potential restrictions, but like what you want. This full moon has the potential to open up pathways for your greatest good, but you need to align and make that intention known.
Mhm.
Whew.
Why are you yelling? No, just kidding.
Stop yelling at me. Honestly, I do that all the time. Like with my Thoughtful Thursdays, when I have like a channel, I'll all of a sudden like come through and be like, bah, 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 bah. And I look back at my things and I'm honestly doing this all the time. I'm like, Lisa, take it easy. But it's the channel always that comes through that's so intense. I got to tell them, stop being so intense.
You
Take
know,
it
though,
down a notch.
the energy of choice, though, is really at the forefront as we move into 2025 too. Because if everything that's going to be coming down the pipe in 2025, it's like choosing, like you're choosing to activate your reality,
Yes.
right? Like you're choosing to activate it. And so you can't always control all the external factors in the reality, but you can choose to activate
Yes.
that reality or not, right? Like we have a bigger piece of control in there than we think we do.
We
And it's about starting
absolutely
to
do.
see that and experience what that looks like. So as we move into 2025, we are more conscious in that activation. Yeah.
Yes.
How about you, Elise?
It's funny you were yelling, Lisa, because they kept showing me and just that you like focused in on the fact that you were yelling. You weren't, but they were showing me this, and it reminds me of like a card from a deck, but I don't actually think it is one that I have, so I don't know. But there's an image of this big full moon. Is it a super moon? The I
I will
don't know, but
Google. I'll do
it
the Google.
feels like the
Do
moon
the
is
Google.
huge, and it's this like huge big bright moon that's like right on top of you. And it's this image of like a human, male, female, whatever, standing there, like arms out to the side, palms kind of up, and just like, ah, like screaming, and just like this full body, like guttural your whole self release yell of like, and it really feels like it's an opportunity. Like I'm getting the sensation of like really intense energy that's been building up in the body, whether that's, you know, stuff happening around you, what you want, you know, like challenges you're having, the desires that you want, the excitement that you feel, like whatever it is, it's like this building up of energy and then this huge release and like yell to move all of it out in one intense ah.
It is a supermoon.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it feels huge. Like it, even in this like vision that they're showing me, it's like right on top of you is how it feels. Um, and so yeah, it for me, it's an opportunity to like express out and move really physically, it feels like whether that's through movement or like a screaming or a like whatever. Um, move these things out that are living within us that are making us feel a little bit paralyzed in that choice. In that, because what they were like, yes to the choice. And then when we get so wrapped up in the things happening around us, we do, I think it was Ginette said, we don't feel like we have the choice that we do. And we get this kind of like paralyzed feeling. And they're like, move that energy. And then you get to choose. If part of your calling is to show up in the reality of the things that you're seeing and do something, then move that energy and do the things. Show up for the people that you want to show up for. Make the choices that you want to make. Take the steps to create the reality that you're wanting to see for yourself and others. And we can't fully do that, and we can't sustain the energy to show up in the world unless we like shed some of the stuff that we're carrying, because the backpack just gets heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. Yeah. And so it's like go and scream.
And lots of the stuff that piles up on that backpack isn't even ours. It's stuff that
Fully.
we're collecting from the collective or from the unconscious or from our ancestors or from what, all the things.
I love that idea of letting go. And in some ways, that may seem like a repetitive message because I know we've talked about it a lot, but it is so important because everything happens in layers. And as we let go of one layer and we shed one layer, there's other layers underneath as we're getting down to the root and the core and the bottom or whatever of ourselves is releasing those layers and those narratives that are unconscious, right? Like sometimes we even, those moments, I'm sure you've both had it where you become conscious to a narrative you've had your whole life and you've never actually heard it consciously in your life until that moment, but you realize it's been a way that you've lived your life. Do you know what I mean? Like those moments where you're like, what? That's the root of how I've actually felt about, say, the work that I do or what I should do in my life or my body or whatever. You're like, that is what I've actually been holding as my truth under all of those layers. And you would have never seen it if you hadn't been shedding those layers. So that's why the shedding of layers and the letting go, especially on full moons, is so valuable because you're going to get to some really cool aha moments. And sometimes when you hit those deeper layers, you can shed that big layer. It's a huge chunk.
Yeah.
Release, right? And then your freedom, your capacity, and your reach just increases. But shedding the layers is a big theme, huge theme. Yeah.
So a couple things came up when you were talking. It's so funny when my guides will be talking, like narrating when you guys are speaking, and they'll be like, yes, and they'll be talking like you all of a sudden you get this in your ear. It's so funny. Okay. So what they were talking about with when you were talking about wind layers, and then all of a sudden a new layer comes, and then something is surfaced, and you're able to like be like, what? Like there's an unconscious narrative. Sometimes for us to be able to bring that into our conscious awareness, there'll have to be a like volunteer who stands forward to reflect to us to bring it forward into our like consciousness to our awareness, and that sometimes feels really intense and yucky and confrontational, right? And so what if we in this like intense full moon about being able to release and what's coming forward for us to let go of so that we can actually align with our highest and greatest good. What if we see these confrontations or interactions with people or situations that might be really triggering, that might come face to face with that kind of reality, that level of consciousness, and we look at it as being like, oh, this is an opportunity for something to come forward to me that I am acknowledging does not align. And this is hanging out in this layer. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, yes, I see why I'm being spoken to like this. I see why somebody is projecting their opinion or their expectations of me, or I am saying out loud this unconscious expectation of self or situation where all of a sudden it hits you and you're like, whoa, that is out of alignment with me. Like sometimes we have to say things out loud for us to be like, where in the hell? Like, have
Yeah.
I been living my whole life like this? Like,
Yeah.
have you guys ever seen the Will Ferrell movie where he's racing?
Talladega Nights.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes. Long time ago.
where his dad's like, if you're not first, you're last.
Right.
Okay. And then he goes forward and he's like, you said, like, if you're not first, you're last. And he's like, well, that's not true. Heck, you could be second, third, you could be fourth, fifth, or sixth. He's like, I've based my whole life
Yeah.
on that. And he's like, well, that's dumb. Like, but it's spirits bringing in a joke because it's like all of a sudden we're in this level of consciousness where we're actually being able to be confronted with something that we've maybe based our whole life on, or like a belief system where it's coming up and being like, what? This isn't true? And it's like, no, like maybe replay that back and see if that still aligns, if that's still applicable to this new timeline. So they're really saying, even though something might feel intense, don't jump into the energy and be engulfed by it, but allow yourself to be like, is this the opportunity about seeing if I'm still in alignment? Is this the opportunity for me to see right in front of me? The like what aligns and what doesn't align anymore, because it will feel intense versus when you're speaking with somebody and something they say like deeply aligns and you're like, oh yeah, like that's nice, thank you for saying that, that really, like, I embodied that and that felt really good. The same thing is true when something comes up, and sometimes it can be deeply triggering because it can come from a family member or a loved one or a spouse or even a child that is saying like, remember mom, we listen, like, or whatever they say, and you're like, shit, like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm projecting my stuff onto you, like we will be
Yeah.
confronted in this full moon with with opportunities to see where belief systems no longer align so that we are able to like be on our path. That was really long-winded, but
Okay. I agree.
I'm
I agree.
shaking. Whew, this energy's really massive.
There's a lot of intensity in the energy, and it's going to stay intense. But the next couple years, honestly, it's going to continue to be intense, but it's really what we choose to do with it. I'm not saying it's always easy in every moment either. I'm not just saying like, Lisa, just choose to be happy and deal with it. But like, there's moments, but it's really what we choose to do within those moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is we have Pluto moving into Aquarius on the 19th, right? That's a bigger shift energy. It's not the only shift energy, but like there is a lot to move through and to wade through right now and to kind of ground ourselves into. And also, like, we're being asked to observe who we are, what we are, where we are from every angle, from many levels and layers too, right? So there's a lot of processing to happen in that. So I think there's something to be said for that.
How do you then suggest for the viewers and for us, if we're looking on going through these layers and shedding and burning away, and like, how?
I think one of the biggest things is to look at what's triggering you, what's coming up, what's in your face. What are the common themes in your face right now, whether they're positive, because sometimes we need to let go of our limitation of positivity. right? Like some don't want to embrace the good things in their life, and maybe the good things are blaring in their face, right? So it can go both ways. But just notice what's coming up in your face right now and be willing to sit with it and see it. Have a conversation with it. Don't run from it. I think running from our stuff right now would be one of the worst things we could do.
Mm-hmm.
Sit with what's coming up, move through it, ask yourself questions, talk to who you need to about it, write it out, but do something with it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All
It's
right.
big.
It is big. Any other thoughts before we close it off?
When you say do something with it, I would definitely invite anybody watching this is like, what does come up? Maybe take a little date with your journal and write down, even if you're not comfortable writing down, maybe like voice recording or something, just everything that's come up without judgment. It's like what's coming up. Because it's probably an opportunity to decide exactly what is in alignment. Because with the veil so thin and the timelines so readily available on all levels, we are being asked to connect in with the energy and the frequency of our true authentic alignment. And so if something is triggering and coming up, it's an opportunity. It really, really is. You don't have to have all the answers even. Like you said, sit with it, see what comes up.
Yeah.
Because less is more in this, right?
Yeah, I think so. All right. Any closing thoughts there, Elise? Nope. 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 All done. Buttoned up. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Do dive into you this full moon. Dive into you. Create a sacred space. Create something sacred or ceremonial for you to really be able to hold space and see what's coming forward so you can make the most of the energy. The energy is there for us to work with. So we encourage you to make the most of it. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Please do share and subscribe and like. And your comments are always wonderful, and we welcome them as well. So have a beautiful full moon, everyone, and we will see you next week.